Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy!
I am now going to invite everyone to please close your eyes as I go through a visualization exercise and take you away somewhere, somewhere where you're not in your everyday life, somewhere away. Actually, I am going to take you into your everyday life. You just got home from work. You take your hard hat off, your gloves, you unzip your overalls, pull them off, pull off your boots, your shirt, you pull whatever article of clothing. Oh man.
Is this for the Patreon? Is this after dark? Like, I don't know if we should be giving this away.
I can't even continue.
I can't even visualization.
I've never busted up like this during the visualization. All right, we'll have the outtake as the Patreon exclusive.
That's staying in. I can't cut that. Are you kidding me?
Okay, all right.
That's it, dude. That's all you do.
You turn on the TV and you connect it to your internet and you're ready to turn on your favorite Matt and Ben collaboration. And no, I'm not referring to Three Films and a Podcast. I'm talking about Good Will Hunting, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, something that they, may or may not have won an Academy Award for. We're talking Good Will Hunting. I'm Matt Weiler, coming at you from the one and only City of Trees, and I'm joined here by Ben and Tyler.
Here we
Please
are.
clap.
Hello. Yeah. Yes, I will clap for myself.
Your
We've gone
jab?
full. Your visualization
Yeah.
exercise went full meta this time. I like it.
Yeah, that was like the smoothest transition yet. It took me a while to realize that we were out of it. It was like, oh, yeah, we're done. Okay, cool.
I apologize. Yeah, that was a complete fumble on my part. But no, we're Three Films on the Podcast. We are three folks challenging each other and all of you to watch movies you've never seen before. You can find us anywhere you can find podcasts, on social media at Three Films Pod and on YouTube. Obviously, you found us now. And today, we have this very special pleasure of being joined by Lindsay Tripp.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Right.
Hey,
welcome.
Lindsay, what brings you here?
I have been listening to you guys since the beginning. Ben told me about it when you guys very first started recording, and I've loved it. Personal favorite is still the Ocean's 11 recast episode.
Ooh,
but happy to be here.
Stoked to have
You
you.
have been around for a while. That's a deep cut.
This is the second film of our You Haven't Seen That round. I wish we had some audio that was like, you haven't seen that?
I just
I'm
feel like I really
recording every time I talk to someone about a movie. I'm going to record just in case they say it, so we can have a montage.
so we have it. I feel like I really undersold it last week. Now I feel bad. Maybe I'll go in and dub this or something.
So this pod is centered around movies that we haven't seen, but that still doesn't make us resistant to the bullying that we face from people when we confess that we haven't seen certain movies. And so this round, it was inspired by those people. So you bullies out there, keep bothering cinephiles about the movies that they haven't seen.
You won.
They might, they might actually finally watch those movies.
I was a little horrified to see this one on the list.
I'm sorry.
It's understandable.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I feel like that qualified for every single one of our picks. So
Yeah.
how else is on here?
So I nominated Good Will. I'll just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. I'm the one who nominated Good Will Hunting. I'm the one who hadn't seen it. I had started this movie several times over several years. I've seen, a number of full scenes on TV over the years, but I could not say that I've seen the movie because I hadn't seen it start to finish. And I didn't even have I didn't even have the scenes in chronological order. And so it was nice to finally sit through and experience the full movie in its intended order. This movie is directed by Gus Van Sant. We covered My Own Private Idaho. Is that the only one that we've covered of his?
I think so.
I believe so. Yeah. We were going to do a round, but we switched it out for something else. Yeah,
Okay.
we were going to do a Van Sant round, but
It was cool to see there's some of those same fingerprints that are on this one, which is cool to see.
yeah.
This was written by and starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. It's also starring Robin Williams, Stellan Skarsgård, Minnie Driver, scored by Danny Elfman. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, and it won. Robin Williams won Best Supporting Actor, and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck won for Best Original Screenplay. And so it was a very critically acclaimed movie. And Lindsay, I would love to hear your first experience with this movie and what this movie is for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I hadn't seen this movie until I was probably in like my late 20s. So Matt, like a little bit of judgment, but not all the judgment.
Okay. Thank you.
When I saw it, like it was old at that point. I think this one is 97, right? So I don't know. I was too young when it came out to see it, but I immediately loved the score. Like right from the intro, the music is so beautiful. I love that it has that Elliott Smith. I didn't realize Miss Misery was written for this movie, which is such a beautiful song. It's so sad.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that part. It's like nostalgic and it feels comfortable. And it's just like one of those like beautiful nostalgic 90s films immediately. Love that part. And then I love their friendship in it. Matt and Ben, like, I feel like it's so, because they're friends in real life, it's so genuine and it feels so natural. And I love that part of it.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I was stoked that you were so pumped to come talk about this. Cause like, okay, cool. I love when someone's like really wants to talk about something, you know, and I think this movie is perfect for that. Like you said, it is like perfect 90s nostalgia. It is, I don't remember when I saw it for the first time, but it's just like, it's crazy to see how young Matt and Ben were, you know, in this movie. It's like, oh man, like Casey Affleck,
impressive.
Dude. And their accents, like, I mean, they're from Boston, you know what I mean? So it's like accurate, but it just sounds caricaturish, you know? It's just like, it's kind of, yeah. And yeah, just like, yeah, like you said, their friendship is great. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Casey Affleck in it. He's so funny in this movie. Like, he is the unsung champ. Like that scene where they're all riding up to the basketball courts where they're going to go fight those guys. And he's like, we should have done this 15 minutes ago. We got snacks now. Like that. That to me. I was like,
oh, well. We just seen the guy 15 minutes ago at the park. If he was going to fight him, we should fight him then. We're eating our snacks now.
Shut up, Morgan. You're going.
I'm not going.
So don't go.
I'm not going.
He's so good. Yeah. Like sometimes we do our Apollonia Award and he might, you know, deserve it for this one because he's great. And apparently, you know, there's so much trivia, but apparently a lot of his stuff was just like ad-libbed because it was funnier than what was in the script. So I think that's awesome. I think this
like there's that where Ben Affleck offers Matt Damon a job and he's like, I asked you for a job yesterday. And he's like, I told you no yesterday.
Yeah. It's so good. It is so good. Yeah, like even with that fight thing, Ben's like, you better, like, you're asking me to be out of this car in like 15 seconds or whatever. Just like you can see their dynamic too, which is really cool. But I want to say this is like the first serious Robin Williams role that I remember seeing. I mean, there may have been some others, but I think this was the first time. It's almost like Jim Carrey Truman Show. It's like, oh, he could just like act. Like, that's cool. Like, I didn't know this about him. You know, it's probably just my ignorance or whatever, but I was just blown away by how good Robin Williams was here. What blew me away this time that I have somehow never clocked just that Danny Elfman did the soundtrack or did the score. I was like, what? Like, this is Danny Elfman? And it makes sense when you hear it, but I was just like, holy shit, like this like blows my mind, you know, like we're talking to another podcast host who's talking about doing some stuff and I picked Danny Elfman and I just like, yeah, let's talk about all the Tim Burton movies, you know, but it's like, oh shit, he did this. Like that's nuts. So yeah, I paid more attention to the score this time, which is wonderful. Super funny. I mean, it is like some of it's kind of like, man, they really made like him perfect, you know, like there's like nothing. He's like the smartest guy who knows everything about everything. It's like, and which is good. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like who the character is. That's who Will is. I was like, oh, this dude just, he's like, how does he know all this? Like, this is insane. This is like Slumdog Millionaire, like to the millionth degree, you know, it's like, why does he know all this stuff? But I love it. I think it's great. I think it's such a good movie and it might make my Robin Williams like Rushmore if we did that. Like, I think it might make my personal choice because he does such a good job in this.
I mean, he won an award, dude, a major award, a prestigious award.
I agree with the Academy. Good job, guys.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Danny Elfman thing, Ben, because one of my favorite things about this movie, and I guess this is true for a lot of movies, but different things sort of pop out to you every time you watch it. You know what I mean? I have no idea how many times I've seen this movie. I don't remember when the first time I watched it was, but it was later in my life. It was like well past when it was in theaters and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It was like already on cable and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I saw the Danny Elfman's name on the credits, the opening credits. I was like, oh shit, Danny Elfman, this guy's in everything. That rules. And yeah, it continues to surprise me. I still love it just as much as the first time I saw it. I remember actually watching the Oscars, and it was such a big deal that those guys were there, and there was a lot of buzz that they were going to win. Sort of reminded me a lot of like this year with Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like the buzz was all about that movie. And the year that the Good Will Hunting came out, the buzz was all about Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. I remember watching them get on stage and accept the award and do their speech and whatnot. And it was presented as these kids that had just come out of nowhere. Like in my mind, it was like two kids that no one had ever heard of and somehow got this movie made. But that's never how things really go. They had some connections to the industry or whatever, but I don't know. It was just always a really cool story to me to watch these guys just kind of blossom out of nowhere and become the stars that they are. They're like two sides of the same coin, right? One's beloved and one's less so.
Yeah.
And for good reason or not, I don't know. I don't have anything against Ben Affleck, but a lot of people seem to. He does have like pretty punchable face.
He does, for sure. Like, he really does.
Like, I mean, he really plays it up in this movie. He's like, just like, he just is like, he's a little arrogant and a little, whatever in this movie, but that's his character, but he fits the character. You know what I mean? So, Ben, I know you're listening. Apologies.
But it's like, when he went up to talk to the girls, like Will's like, all right, I should make my way over there because this is probably going to be an issue. Like, yeah, it's not the first time he's had to defend him, for sure.
And it's also like what they're looking for, right? Like that's what they want. They want I forget his name in the movie, but they want Ben Affleck to go stir some shit so they can jump in the mix.
Yeah. Chucky.
And yeah, you mentioned Casey Affleck would probably get your Apollonia. And I agree with that. I actually liked him more. Not liked him more. How do I put this? I never really paid attention to him before. At other times that I've watched it, he was just like the little funny kid off in the corner, right? But this time I have more familiarity with Casey Affleck, so I paid attention to him more. But every time I watch this movie, literally every single time, I forget beforehand, and then I'm reminded during the movie just how phenomenal Minnie Driver is.
Oh man,
like. She is so good in this. She's so charming, so cute, and so fun. And like, I wish like they had given her like a little more to do. You know what I mean? Besides just pine over Goodwill. But I don't know. She's just so good, and like you really at the very least, you buy her interest in him. You know what I mean? Like their chemistry seems palpable, and it's just every time I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, Minnie Driver's great. This is awesome, and. Yeah. So I think she probably would have got my Apollonia, but I do see the case for Casey Affleck for sure.
See, Tyler, I felt all those same things about Minnie Driver, but for Stellan Skarsgård. Just kidding.
Oh yeah. I mean, look,
his character is such a
oh yeah, he's so bad. But I think Minnie Driver is great. Like when we see her with those weird glasses on, like we get to see some of her personality that isn't necessarily involving Will. It's like we get to see a little bit of her on her own, which is you don't really get a lot of in any sort of.
They let her like be goofy in it.
Yeah, which is so cool. I like that.
Yeah, no, she was great. Casey Affleck was a great call out. I like to think that the sequel for his character is that Dunkin' Donuts sketch on Saturday Night Live.
I don't remember that one.
Oh man, that's that character.
I'll drop the clip.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Hey, interview my buddy Dewey for the movie right here. Dewey, tell me your favorite donut is.
I don't want to be in there.
Come on, pal. It's a movie. Tell me how you like the vanilla nut taps.
What?
The vanilla nut test. Oh, don't. It's a joy.
You know, it's funny. Affleck and Damon were on the Bill Simmons podcast recently. You're welcome, Bill. I know you need our plugs.
Hey, Bill.
But they talked about their favorite character in there, and like is Cole Hauser. He plays like the other guy in the crew that talks less, and he just is kind of like the brooding guy.
He's Rip from Yellowstone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't watch Yellowstone, so
Nice.
I'm glad to see that, because they
I'm trying to figure out what I recognize him from.
They rave about him in this interview. Like, Cole Hauser's the best actor we know, and like we wrote that part for him. I'm like, I mean, you're welcome, I guess. Like, you gave him like 4 lines, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Of all the people, they just raved about Cole Hauser the most. So,
oh, he's in Dazed and Confused. Nice.
Yeah, he's in a ton of stuff, but he looks so different. It's crazy. But I think that's maybe why he's getting so much attention right now, is because everyone who's watched Yellowstone loves him.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
So this movie obviously has its place in pop culture for all the reasons that Tyler mentioned. All the buzz around the Oscars. They were, young up and coming stars of their time. They've obviously had, very successful careers. It was great to revisit this, see them in their younger era, see a script that I was blown away by how really well the script was. It wasn't nominated and didn't win for no reason.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Like I felt the same thing. I felt like as Matt Damon was like saying some of the things, I was like, man, his character knows everything. But then I was like, man, these two buttheads wrote this script. Like,
yeah.
Where did they pull this from? So I thought it was cool. Really enjoyed it. I loved it. It hit on all the emotional beats that it should have. I thought that one scene that really struck me was there's that sequence where Robin Williams takes him to the pond and talks to him. We might talk about it a little later. He's talking to Matt Damon, and the music in that scene carries on into the next scene of Matt Damon going about, his day. It was just such a cool way to convey that, like, oh man, that resonated with him, because this music from that scene is carrying on, throughout the rest of the day. And I don't feel like I noticed that as much in other movies, but it was really successful as a narrative device in this one. So I wanted to shout that out. But yeah. I obviously knew going into this that it was like a very hyped up movie. People love this movie. People have been, flabbergasted that I hadn't seen it, but it lived up to its expectations.
Nice.
So I was happy for that.
And now you never have to face that ridicule ever again.
Yeah.
Now I don't.
You can just walk around like, I've seen Good Will Hunting. And like, okay, it's about time. That's good.
That's what I needed on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I finally saw Good Will Hunting.
I've seen Good Will Hunting.
Ask me about Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. But you should say, it should say like, I finally went and saw about Good Will Hunting. Try to gonna steal Robin's line.
Oh man, I'm like hesitant to make any sort of reference to Family Guy, but there is one thing I remember, and it is about Good Will Hunting. And it's like Matt Damon is sitting there like typing away, the script or whatever. Then they like pan over, and like I think Ben Affleck's just like laying on the couch, like, what if his name's Will? It's like, oh yeah, great man. It's like that's like all he contributes to the whole script. It's like it kind of seems like that's what happened. Like Matt Damon just wrote the whole thing, and Ben's like, "What? I want to be Chucky." Like, cool, all right, yeah, that's great. Like I don't remember exactly what the quote is. I'm gonna see if I can find it, but that's still what I think about when I think of Good Will Hunting. It's like, yeah, he was probably just like throwing out names, and he's like, all right, yep, written by Ben Affleck. Cool, all right.
I love that.
Good job.
You did it.
Poor Ben.
So I have been bullied. I've been stuffed in a locker over not seeing this movie. But what someone didn't do for me was someone didn't play a scene of this movie to me to get me to finally sit down and watch this movie, which is insane. And so what we've made it a point to do on this pod is we run the exercise. If you're stuck on an elevator with someone and you have to get them to watch this movie, what scene are you going to pull up on your phone to show them to convince them to watch it?
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Lindsay, I would love to hear what elevator pitch you would show to someone.
Yeah, Matt, it's the scene you mentioned a few minutes ago, the park bench scene in front of the pond. That's the one you got to show them. It's so I was thinking about it earlier, and I was thinking, watch the scene again, and it is such a stark difference, knowledge and wisdom between the two. you gotta love that he talks about his wife and like that beautiful piece. You can tell how hard it hits Matt, like you were saying, and you can tell that it really sat with him.
But you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Known someone that could level you with her eyes. Feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you. Who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel. To have that love for her be there forever.
Yeah, that line about the Sistine Chapel, that one hits me in the gut every time. It's like, it's such a perfect line. And obviously this is a movie about like, everyone in this is like, all the main characters are the smartest people in the room, you know, like, and so as much as that's a line that's, I would say almost nearly impossible to say in the moment, you know what I mean? Like that's such a good line, but I don't know. It just works so well. Such an effective way to make that point. And it really does just like, oh yeah, like I don't know shit. I haven't done anything. I've never been anywhere. Like it's phenomenal. And Robin Williams delivers it so incredibly well.
I also really love the bit about Oliver Twist, where he's like, look, I've read Oliver Twist. It doesn't tell me anything about you. Like, because I think just generally we're all guilty of sort of attributing people's situation to stuff that we're familiar with without really even knowing any of the finer details to understand, you know, and empathize properly. And so that monologue really just like is very, what's the word? Very stirring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And smarter people are going to follow up my comment right now with, well, duh. But when I watched it this time, I was like, oh, that's like also the parallel to the bar, you know what I mean? When he's like ripping apart this guy for memorizing stuff, you know, and that's the whole like knowledge versus wisdom. It's like, yeah, you could like memorize it, but it doesn't mean you know it. And yeah, that scene just it hits so well. Like Ron Williams is so good in that.
So good.
Well, I mean, so speaking of the bar scene, that's the scene that I would pick. I kind of went back and forth between this scene, Lindsay, and the bar scene. The only reason I didn't pick the park bench scene is because I feel like I would want someone to be able to like experience that in the moment, like in real time. That's something that I've like started to really consider in my elevator pitch scenes.
Yeah.
But the Harvard bar scene to me just sets up Will so perfectly. And it's like, it's fun to watch him, you know, take the dude down.
Agrarian pre-capital.
All right, of course that's your
Hang on a
contention.
sec.
You're a first-year grad student. You just got finished reading some Marxian historian, Pete Garrison probably. You're going to be convinced of that till next month when you get to James Lemon. Then you're going to be talking about how the economies of Virginia and Pennsylvania were entrepreneurial and capitalist way back in 1740. That's going to last until next year. You're going to be in here regurgitating Gordon Wood, talking about, you know, the pre-revolutionary utopia and the capital forming effects of military mobilization.
You really get a sense of like the sort of duality of his character, right? He's this really rough and tumble kid. He's got holes in his shirt, and you can tell he's no stranger to a fight, and he has no fear in his eyes, and he's got total confidence, and he knows that he owns that moment, both physically and mentally. And it really kind of sets up like Will as like our, for lack of a better term, our superhero for this movie, right? Like he's the strongest, he's the smartest, he is the best of the best, you know, the South he's got to offer. And I don't know, I just love it so much. It's just really cool. We get to see Minnie Driver. I would like to be able to include all the way up to the, you know, how about them apples line, but I think we just cut it off right when he asks them if they want to step outside. We can cut it there. But that's the scene that pops right into my head when I think about this movie, is just Will intellectually fighting this guy with, you know, without having to physically fight him.
Well, and I love that scene too, because it also kind of going back to like the Ben and Matt friendship piece of it. Like that scene is Matt protecting Ben. And then later on when he's talking to Robin Williams and he asks him who he loves, or whatever that question is, who his soulmate is. And he says, not Chucky. Chucky'd lay down in front of a train for you. Like the friendship is such a mutual love, and it's like a brotherhood. I just love that. I think that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's so cute. I love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's such a good comment too. And he's like, no, you like soulmate someone that challenges you or whatever. Like, oh, that's like a interesting perspective. Yeah. So yeah, I like that a lot. Mine is, you know, it's that scene where they're I forget exactly what they're talking about, but Damon brings up is like, I have been laid though, like just whatever, some macho guy shit, he's like, oh really cool, great. He's like, yeah, laid. Was it like super hard
time.
or something? Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's like, oh, big time. All right, cool. But then like it goes into, I mean, just like some of the funniest stuff, which like again, IMDb trivia, whatever, but apparently this was all ad-libbed from Robin Williams, but he goes into the whole story about how his wife farts in bed, and one time it like woke up the dog and, just like all that kind of stuff. And just like how that's what he misses about his wife. It's like those little things that you miss. It's not like, the perfect person or whatever. It's those little stories, those little whatever. And it's such a funny story, the way he tells it. I mean, we hang on Damon's reaction so much and he's laughing so hard, which like I think brings a little bit of truth to this like idea that it's all ad-lib, because like I don't think he was ready for this at all.
My wife used to fart when she was nervous. She had all sorts of wonderful little idiosyncrasies. She used to fart in her sleep. I'm sorry I shared that with you. One night it was so loud it woke the dog up. She woke up and got like, oh, was that you? I said, yeah, I didn't have the heart to tell her. Oh, God. She woke herself up.
And it's so funny. It's so well done. But then it also just packs this emotional punch of just like, he's like, you're not perfect. And this girl that you're hung up on, like, I hate to break it to you, she's not perfect, but that's not what matters. It's, are you guys perfect for each other? And it's just like, oh man, like this dude fucking loved his wife. You know what I mean? Like that is like in no doubt throughout this whole movie. Like that was his person. That was, I don't know. And it's just so amazing to see that kind of carried on throughout, but being able to drop some of that knowledge, so to speak, on Will and just be like, you're not perfect. She's not. Like, you're worried that, you're going to find out, whatever. It's like, no one's perfect. You just like, are you guys perfect for each other? That's what matters here. And it's just so cool. So just to follow up a really funny story, which also then kind of hits at home when he's like, that's what I miss. Cause now, we know that his wife is gone, and then just how the perspective is of like choosing your partner and stuff. So I think it's a great scene. I think it's something that, doesn't necessarily spoil anything or give anything away. And it's just like, I just think it's kind of funny. And I don't know, Robin Williams gets to be, the laugh man in this scene. And I think that's what we all love about him. So yeah, that's what I go with.
Yeah. I love that. I love that scene. I'm going to make a lot of Good Will Hunting fans angry with my pick, because my pick is just the simple visit from Stellan Skarsgård to the janitors.
Oh,
yeah.
Just like asking about, I don't know. I just have such a soft spot for like the hot shot going to like, the peons and just like getting no respect.
It's
I love
so
it.
Good.
It's funny to me every time.
His friend be like, this is Professor Lambeau. He's like, great. This is Professor Hayes. Like, whatever. Like, it's just like a title.
Just die laughing.
And it shows like just the absolute ignorant arrogance of whatever the instructor's name is, like, my building, whatever. And he's like, okay, well, which one's your building, dipshit?
Yeah.
I don't know who you are. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The assumption that everyone knows who he is. And it's just such a perfect example of like the different sides of the streets that all these characters are on,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Speaking of sides of the street, we're going to be heading down that street to the local drive-in theater.
Yes.
Owned by none other than Adam Driver. Not related to Minnie Driver. But Adam is trusting us to pair something with Good Will Hunting. He's put a lot of confidence in us because if you haven't noticed, movies like Good Will Hunting aren't exactly putting butts in seats anymore. So
it's true.
Not that they ever necessarily were, but now they won't even make movies that perform the way that these movies used to perform. So Adam's, trusting us. He's saying, look, pairs something good. Let's sell some tickets. And I want to know, what movie we're pairing this with tonight.
I just had sex. I'm about to eat nachos. It's the greatest moment of my life.
Lindsay, what do you got?
I never want to let Adam Driver down, so I thought real hard about this one, threw around a couple of ideas, and I landed on Gladiator. I think that's the ultimate choice here.
Ooh, nice. That's a really good
which one are you
pick.
showing first?
Gladiator first. You got to. People won't sit through one to get to the other. It's too hard. If you get them excited, then they'll stay.
It's true.
Okay.
And people like me can just show up late because we don't want to see Russell Crowe. So
Me and
that's
Ben will come
ideal.
halfway through. We'll get some popcorn. It'll be fine.
Yeah, this will be perfect. I love that.
How did you tie these movies together? I'm curious.
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe a timeline. Maybe it's when I saw them in my life, but I also think that I saw Gladiator for the first time at a drive-in. So it just felt right.
Nice.
But it's just,
like
they both have just like this strong, like, again, like loyalty, family, like that kind of draw to it, that it just felt like a natural fit.
I love it.
It's great.
These do feel like they were like of an era, right? Like they did come around. They were a few years apart, but it was like sort of, it makes sense. Like if you when you think about it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I dig that. That's cool. I've never thought about that as like a way to tie the movies together. I always like find a more direct tie, which is funny because I kind of didn't do that with my pick this time. There's like a lot of like, okay, let me back up and explain. So I watched Good Will Hunting yesterday morning. And then I was sitting around with my girlfriend, Alex, and she looked at me and she said, "Hey, we should watch The Social Network." And I will jump at any opportunity to watch The Social Network. And as we were watching that, I'm like, that's
written by Aaron Sorkin, Lindsay. I don't know if you've heard of that movie, but Aaron Sorkin wrote The Social Network. So you should, look into that.
It's okay.
But I noticed like it had a lot of common threads of to Good Will Hunting, right? So we have Danny Elfman, Trent Reznor. We have like two really talented musicians, one doing his first score, one who is like an established score composer. We have like the genius at Harvard who needs therapy and doesn't get it, and the genius that does the, of no privilege, who can't get into Harvard, who does take the therapy and better himself. They're like two sides of the same coin, right? Like, I don't know. I just thought there was a lot of interesting parallels. They both go to California. There is, it's like a lot of smart people saying smart things. And so, I decided to go to Social Network, and we're going to do that one first. And we're going to end the night on a positive note with Good Will Hunting.
Cool. I like that. Mine, I feel like, I mean, in the most non-boastful way, because I think this is the most perfect movie we've ever had for the double feature, because I'm picking something written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, starring them along with our host, Adam Driver. He also happens to be in it. And I've picked The Last Duel, which, the three of us all saw together. The Last Duel is great. It is nothing like Good Will Hunting as much as they promoted that way. Like, hey guys, do you guys see Good Will Hunting? Do you like that? You should come see the Last Duel. Like, no. But Jodie Comer is great in it. This movie's great. I don't know. I think it's really well done. There's nothing that connects it other than just like the things I said. So like that's it. It's a very direct, but I just think it'd be kind of interesting. I was gonna put. I originally put Air, that new movie, like Michael Jordan stuff, but then I was like, no, if we're at Adam's Drive-In, we got to show one of his movies. So I'm going with The Last Duel. Well,
and it's Ridley Scott, so it ties into Lindsay's pick.
Look at us. Synchronicity.
It's the rug. It ties the room together.
It really does.
It's the idiosyncrasies.
That's right.
The scene that really got me in this movie was actually right at the end with Ben Affleck going to his door and Matt Damon's not there. And it's a callback to a line that he says earlier on. We've talked about like their friendship in this movie and how sweet it is. And that was just like such a sweet moment about their friendship, and how excited he was that his friend was finally like, the eagle was flying, basically. And it just reminded me of one of my other favorite endings in the movie Sing Street, where the brother, who's kind of a deadbeat, gets his brother a ride to the boat to head over to England to pursue a music career. And just the way that he's cheering him on as he like rides off in the boat, I just thought was just like a great parallel to a similar feeling. So I'm watching Good Will Hunting first, and then Sing Street.
I like it. Pick. I was so curious how you were going to tie those together. I forgot about that ending. So that's I dig it.
Love me that ending. I guess to wrap this episode up, we are going to do a Rushmore Mountain, and we just figured with two Boston boys, we might as well do a Rushmore movie about Boston movies.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
And so we're all going to pick one movie of movies with Boston. So Lindsay, what Boston movie did you pick?
I was so excited when Ben said we were going to do a Rushmore on this episode. I was like, I've been looking forward to it.
Yes.
You got to go with the fighter on this one. Marky Mark forever. That's my pick, man. I thought that like, again, like sort of a similar theme, like the family, the loyalty, all of that. Apparently that's my theme tonight. But I loved that movie. I thought Mark Wahlberg did such a great job. His mom, all the sisters, it was so good. And it reminded me like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting talks about like all of his brothers and sisters. What is he, like the youngest of 12 or something, he says?
Yeah.
And like Mark and his brother have all those sisters in this huge family. And it just felt like a cool parallel.
That's so good. Yeah, Melissa Leo's so great in that movie. And then I'm always caught off guard by the fact that Conan O'Brien's sister is in this. So it's like, because they look so alike, it's like, oh my God, that's right. It's
weird.
I did not know that, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Once you know it, it's like you can't unsee it. So yeah, that's great. That's an awesome selection. I went with, also tied to Ben Affleck, but just one of my favorite movies and probably my favorite thing that he's directed. And it's The Town, about a bunch of bank thieves. Rebecca Hall's in it, who just doesn't get enough stuff. So I love seeing her. But John Hamm, Jeremy Renner, like they just, I don't know. It's such a good movie. It's pretty high action, like the action is done really well in this. Blake Lively, Pete Postlethwaite is in it too, who's like, I always think about him he's the guy with like the roses that's like, trimming the thorns and stuff. Like he's just such a presence. So if anyone hasn't seen The Town, like definitely recommend it. Like I think it's such a good movie, and probably the best thing Renner's done. I don't know, like Hurt Locker's great, but I love him in this movie. So
Wind River, man.
True. All right, that's fine. It's definitely not Hawkeye, but it's at least we know that. But yeah, The Town, that's my Boston pick.
Yeah, good stuff, man. I love The Town. This is a difficult one for me. I only get one pick, and there's a lot of good Boston movies out there.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm being honest, my favorite of the two I'm considering is Good Will Hunting. My only qualm is I know it's a Boston movie, and Boston does play a huge part in the movie. It's like a character in the movie, but I just don't think of it as a Boston movie a lot of the times. Like I think of it as like I just think of Will and his friends, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm going to go with Good Will Hunting, but I was heavily considering The Departed. I love The Departed. It's not my favorite Scorsese, but I've always been a huge fan of the movie, and I do think of Boston when I think of The Departed.
Yeah.
But even having said that, Goodwill's a better movie, in my opinion. So we'll put that on the Rushmore.
I'm with you on that though. Like outside of their accents, like this could take place in a lot of places. Like obviously there's like MIT, but it's just like, if you didn't know what college it was or their accents, like I don't know, it doesn't really affect it too much, but you're right. I think it's a better film than The Departed, as great as The Departed is.
So my pick, since The Witch isn't technically in Boston, mine would be a much happier movie. I'm going with Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore's Fever Pitch.
I'm so happy to see this on here.
Which is it's a great sports. It's an underrated sports movie in my opinion.
And I always think it's funny that he's such a big Yankees fan and they made him play like a Red Sox fan in this movie. But yeah, this is like an underrated rom-com. I think think this movie is a ton of fun.
Yeah,
it's a great pick.
Affleck, didn't he have a role where he refused to wear a Yankees hat or something like that?
Yeah, and I think they got him to wear like a Mets hat or something. Like he wouldn't do the Yankees. But yeah, what movie was that for?
It makes me like him more. Because if someone's like, okay, you can have this role, but you have to wear a Lakers jersey the whole time. Like, I don't know, man.
I don't think I can do that.
I think the reason Fallon was down with it is because it's just as insulting having Fallon play a diehard Red Sox fan.
Yeah,
to them,
probably true. It's more of a dig on the Red Sox fans.
Yeah, like they could have gotten Ben Affleck for this role, but they got Jimmy Fallon.
And the crazy thing about that movie is like 100 years of like failure by the Red Sox, and then when they're filming the fucking movie, it's the first time they win the World Series. They had to totally like rewrite the ending and like show up at the World Series like, oh, we did it. It's like, but did it take this movie for like some curse to be lifted? It's insane. Like it's just like, oh, they'll never win, so this will be a great premise for a movie. It's like, just kidding, they won for the first time ever. Like it's so good.
Well, that's a great roundup of Boston movies. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that anyone wanted to mention?
I mean, we could probably just talk about every scene in this movie, but shout out to Matt and Ben's sort of climactic talk towards the end of the movie. I think it's right at the end of the movie. Ben Affleck gets a lot of shit, but he does really good in this scene. I really like his little monologue, and I say to myself, I'm going to wake up and be 50 more times than I'd care to admit. So as time starts to fly by faster and faster, that's starting to be the reality. It's like, oh yeah, that's it's gonna happen. One day I'm gonna wake up and be 50, and that's fine.
Yep. We'll watch Good Will Hunting on that day. I just wanted to mention I love the intensity between Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård when they're going at it, towards the end. It's just like, oh shit, these are like, they're throwing blows at each other and they're both doing a great job. There's so much heat in that scene. So I just wanted to shout that one out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I will never not cry during the "It's Not Your Fault" scene. Like that's just
how we talked about that.
I don't know how none of us have mentioned this whole time. It's got to be done. But that scene, man, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's so sad.
It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me, all right? Don't fuck with me, Sean. Not you. It's not your fault.
Yeah. Oh, it's so sad. But it also makes me think Tyler and I took a trip to Kenya. And do you remember doing that? Like in like the mess hall, like dinner tent thing I forget who it was, but I think you're like, Annie, it's not your fault. But she hadn't seen the movie, so she didn't get it. And you just like kept repeating it. She's like, yeah, no, it's not. I was like, it's not your fault. It's like everyone that had seen it got the joke, and she had no idea what was going on. It's
just you and Annie are like, what's happening right now? Oh no, you had seen it. Never mind, you had seen it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I love that.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, those are great scenes. I had a great time with this movie. Lindsay, it was so good having you on to discuss this with us. Thank you so much. And welcome to the clubhouse. And thank all of you for
thank you
for joining us tonight. And we'll catch you on the next round of You Haven't Seen That.
Oh my God, I love that.
You got to play that every single time now.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
You haven't seen that.
I'm cutting that into my episode. Just
I can keep going. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So you can be successful writers like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
There, finished. Good Will Hunting by Matt Damon.
Hey, you think we could put both our names on that?
What? You've done nothing but eat briars and smoke pot for the last 6 months.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Come on, I helped.
Oh, yeah? Okay, write a line. Just right now. Just pitch me a line right now.
Okay. How about that?
That wasn't a line. You just farted.
Is there any more pot?